Hi guys and girls. So I thought I'd do a few videos just covering a few different parts of the swing and hopefully some of you might learn something from it um, or it might just reinforce some of the things you already know um, and hopefully you get a chance to practice a few things. So take a look. Okay, so for pitching, so anything sort of north of 20 yards, there's a few changes that you're going to start to make. So again, we're going to be trying to keep the club relatively flat on the ground. Now, basically, what happens to the golf club as you go along in distance, as you start hitting harder, the club will start to bend more and more this way. So you can have a slight drop in the heel of the club as you're going longer. But bearing in mind that you're still only hitting, let's say, in a pitch, sort of what up to well, the majority of golf is up to the sort of 70-yard mark. There's not a huge amount of force on the club, so I'd say definitely don't go any more than a pound's worth, which is what we would in iron setup. So definitely no more than sort of a pound's worth underneath there ever. But for the majority of the time, definitely at least up until about 50 yards, you want to be keeping that club as flat on the ground as possible. So you can do that by going a little bit further down than the club. Okay. Now, with the rest of the setup, we want to try and make sure once we've got that club there, again, same as in irons, we're going to have back of the arm, front of the knee, end of the laces, okay, all line up in one line, nice straight back. With just like with club positioning, I tend to see someone. I'd prefer to see someone start off at 10 degrees for sort of 20 yards. So 10 degrees open for 20 yards. Then as they get a bit further in towards 70 yards, getting the feet feeling ever so slightly open. As I mentioned in the chipping video, I just prefer once I get up to that kind of like 70, 80-yard mark, I prefer to just have my left toe turned out. And all that does is just help me turn through the ball a little bit more, making sure that I'm not getting too stuck. And then that left arm will have a bit of bend, tend to thin the ball, things like that. So just allow yourself a way through is probably the easiest way to put that. Just allow yourself a way to turn through the ball with maximum ease. You don't want to be having to worry about having to turn through the ball when you're hitting a 60-yard pitch. So once you're set up, so end of the laces, front of the knees, back of the arms, my feet, I'm just going to say this is around the 60-yard pitch. From here, once I get myself in a set-up position, something I'm looking to make sure of is that I'm going to go into a nice neutral takeaway. Again, I'm going to be following my feet. So I'm going to be ever so slightly outside ball to target line. So let's say that's my ball to target line. So I'm going to be from here ever so slightly outside the ball to target line. Not going to be going back here and getting the club into here. Just on that note, feet again, width wise, will become wider as you go longer into pitching. Okay, so as you start hitting it harder and further, you're going to want to have those feet get a little bit wider and more open. Wider apart. So from that position, so that's my ball to target line. Feet ever so slightly open. Now from here, as I'm moving ever so slightly outside that ball to target line, nice one piece takeaway. So I've got a video on that as well. But just think nice and neutral, one piece takeaway, moving away from the ball. Now, in this, there is going to be more hinge. Now, something to try and note is I see a lot of people go outside the ball to target line and hinge, get a lot of this going on. Let yourself have a little bit of movement, just a tiny bit of rotation, and really feel the club stay as upright as physically possible. So when you video yourself, if you can, from this position, again, just moving just outside that ball to target line, I'm going to let that club hinge, and that's going to be nice and upright. Not looking for angles here. okay, or bend in the knees, or sort of no movement in the hips. Let your body turn. You don't want to be moving behind the ball, okay? So we don't want to be moving too much away from it. Again, I'd say be sticking to the 50-50 with the feet. As you go longer, there will be a bit of natural movement. In your head, just stick to 50-50 and let that kind of happen. Okay, if you've got a decent turn in your irons in your full swing, then naturally there will be a little bit of compensation with your body and with your weight anyway. So just let that happen. For you, 50-50 in your head. From that position, okay, that's going to mean that then you will get that club feeling as though the plane can be nice and upright. Okay, again, no angle out here. So draw a line, if you can video it, draw a line down here, okay, and you should see a little bit of exposure of the front of your hips, okay, where your hips are going to be rotating, and you'll see the club point at absolute worst case scenario at the ball. You'll never see it point outside the ball. So around this kind of position in here is good. Now from there, with that little bit of hinge, I would then say you're then just looking to move through and shift a bit of weight onto that left hand side. Again, just like in chipping, you're moving around that 70% mark to start. So you've got 70% onto the left side maximum for around the sort of 20 to 30 yards, give or take. As you go longer, you will then produce more weight and push more weight onto that left hand side. So with that being said, 60 yards, give or take for me, is going to be about left arm parallel to the ground. So from there, through the ball. Okay. Now, with that, something to note, I would recommend that you get used to a certain distance at a certain tempo, a certain length of swing with a certain tempo. So get used to the feeling you're doing. I just use this for my own example. Find one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's down here, up there, if it feels like it's second rib cage high or whatever. You need to get something that you can use as a stock. Now, I'm using 56. That's roughly with my natural, what feels my natural tempo. I go left arm parallel to the ground at my natural tempo. It gives me about 60 to 65 yards total. Total would be 65 yards. So that then means that I'm able to then use that as a bit of a stock. So I then know, okay, right, so if I've got 70 yards, for example, okay, right, so I know that that is my 60 yards. So there, probably going to be my 70. So I've got a stock. A lot of people that I teach, they just don't get the time to practice pitching in particular enough. And it's such an important part of the game. So you've got to get used to the feeling of producing something that's continuous. So when you get to the range, a lot of the ranges have ball tracer and sort of flight simulator stuff there now anyway, so you can just get used to a stock. I say don't worry about trying to go 10 yards short with just yet. Just get used to a stock distance. Once you get used to that distance and you can just accurately do it over and over again, then play around with it. Try and go 10 yards high of it, so 10 yards further, 10 yards shorter, and then try and do that the easy way. So if you've got different wedges, you've then got, right, so my 60 yards is here with 56-degree wedge at my tempo. So then from there, if I just change this to a 52, I've now got 70 to 75 yards. If I change it to a 60, I'm then going below. So I'm thinking, really, that's an easy way to get 3 different distances, and then do that with 3 different clubs. And then you can go longer and shorter with 3 different clubs. Then all of a sudden you've got a lot more distances to choose from. So just try and get used to the feeling of a stock first. Get used to a length that you feel purely comfortable with, no matter how far it is. Okay, so how far back you go. Get used to that. Once you get used to that, then constantly repeat that at a tempo that you're good with. Okay, so you're just completely happy going at that tempo. from that point onwards. From there, all you're looking for is then repeat, repeat, repeat. Then, when you're used to it, you can then produce it and get the feeling that you're able to go up, down, up, down, up, down. All right. So I hope you've got something from that, whether it be something new or it's just a better understanding of what you already know. Hopefully you get a chance to be able to practice it and look after yourselves.